Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I don't tell this story to get attention. I tell it because I still wake up at night, drenched in sweat, gasping like I've run 10 miles. I tell it because there's something in those woods, something real. And if I don't say it out loud, I'm scared I'll start to think it never happened, that I imagined it all. But I didn't. It was early October when I packed my gear and headed for Timber Ridge, deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I just gone through a rough breakup, 7 years down the drain, and I needed to disappear for a while. Not from the world, exactly, but from the noise, the traffic, the texts, the endless questions about how I was holding up. I didn't want to talk. I wanted trees, wind, solitude. Timber Ridge is a long stretch of wild that doesn't attract many tourists. It's steep, isolated, and not well marked. Perfect. I registered at the ranger station, got a tight smile and a stay safe from the woman behind the desk, and set out with a full pack and a heart full of static. The first night was peaceful. I set up camp near a clearing overlooking the valley. Cold air, the rustle of leaves, stars like scattered diamonds above me. I sat by my little stove, boiled some water for instant ramen, and listened to the crackling of the fire. No cell signal, no voices, no footsteps, just silence. But the second night, I'd set up camp deeper into the ridge, in a thicket of trees so dense the moonlight barely touched the ground. I was crouched over my stove again, watching the flame dance under the pot, when I felt it, something off. A tickle on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I looked up. Just outside the circle of firelight stood a figure. Tall, motionless. At first, I thought it was another hiker. Lost, maybe, or hurt. Hey, I called. You okay? No answer. I reached for my flashlight and aimed it toward him. The beam caught his face, or what should have been his face. It was smooth, completely blank. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just pale, featureless skin stretched tight over a head like wax. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, and in the blink of an eye, he was gone. Not walked away, not ran, just gone. Like a magician's trick. I didn't sleep much that night. Kept the hatchet beside me, my ears straining for every crack of twig, every gust of wind. By morning, I convinced myself it was a trick of the firelight. Maybe exhaustion, my brain playing games. But the third night, he came back. This time, I was in my sleeping bag, staring at the roof of my tent, trying to fall asleep. I heard leaves crunching, slow, deliberate steps, then silence. I waited, counted to 30. Nothing. Curiosity got the better of me. I unzipped the tent a few inches and peeked out. He was closer, 10 feet away, standing in that same stiff pose, head tilted slightly like he was trying to understand me. That face, blank and wrong, and deeply, deeply wrong, seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. I didn't blink, didn't breathe, and then, once again gone. No sound, no movement, just vanished. I didn't run. I should have, but I didn't. Part of me wanted answers, maybe even needed them. I'd come here to escape, but now I was trapped. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. Night 4 is the one that broke me. I'd barely slept. Every sound outside the tent made me flinch. The wind sounded like whispers. The creak of the trees groaned like pain. Around 2 a.m., I woke up with a jolt. Not to a sound, but a presence. You know that feeling when someone's staring at you, even if your eyes are closed? It was that, times 10. Then I heard it, breathing, right outside my tent. Deep, ragged, not human. I stayed still, paralyzed. My body refused to move. Then I heard the zipper. Soft, slow, from the bottom. Zip. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear it opening, inch by inch. I don't remember grabbing the hatchet. I just remember screaming. A raw, animal sound ripping from my throat as I thrashed out of the tent, swinging the blade like a madman. But there was no one there. No footprints. No shadow. Just trees. Just the night. I didn't think. I ran, barefoot, half-dressed, my flashlight bouncing wildly in my hand. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs buckled. I didn't stop until I reached the ranger station. Hours later, covered in dirt, blood from a cut on my foot, and tears. The ranger, same woman who checked me in, looked at me like I'd escaped a fire. She sat me down, gave me water, asked what happened. I told her, every word. She didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy. She just said, "You're not the first." I stared at her. "Sometimes people come back with stories," she said. "Always the same thing. A man, no face. He only shows up when you're alone." They found my campsite later that day. My gear was still there, untouched. The tent was zipped up. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. I haven't hiked since. I moved to the city. I sleep with the lights on. And sometimes, late at night, I hear breathing just outside my apartment window. And I don't live on the ground floor. Story 2. It was supposed to be a simple hiking trip, a break from everything. Just me, Sam, and Derek. We were looking for some peace, some adventure. Nothing too crazy. Derek had found a place online, some obscure Reddit thread about a spot called Raven's Hollow in northern Utah. It wasn't on any official maps, but Derek said it was the kind of place we needed to see, the untouched wild. A place where people didn't go. A place where the world still felt raw. That should have been the first red flag. We arrived on a Friday afternoon, the air crisp and biting, the sun hanging low in the sky, casting long shadows over the trees. The ground was uneven, the forest dense with pines that seemed to stretch forever. It was the kind of place where every footstep felt like an intrusion, a disturbance in something ancient. We found a narrow stream, crystal clear water winding its way through the rocks, and decided to set up camp there. At first, everything seemed fine. We pitched the tents, made a fire, joked around like usual. But something about the place felt wrong, an undercurrent of unease that I couldn't shake. It wasn't just the silence, though that was definitely unusual. No birds singing, no insects buzzing, not even the wind in the trees. Just stillness, like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something. That night, after we ate and drank a little, we settled around a fire. The night was cold, the fire crackling as the darkness swallowed up everything beyond the reach of the light. Sam was telling a stupid story about a ghost he'd heard about in some old town when Derek, who had been staring at the trees across the clearing, suddenly froze. I think I saw something," Derek muttered, his voice a little shaky. Seriously? Sam laughed, not taking him seriously. What did you see? A ghost? No, Derek said, shaking his head. A face. Up in the tree. Big round eyes. We all turned to look, but the darkness was too thick. The trees seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky, their branches swaying slightly in the windless air. I didn't see anything, and Sam just laughed it off. Derek, man, you've been reading too many of those weird Reddit threads, Sam said. Get some sleep. But Derek wasn't laughing. He kept staring at the trees, his face pale, his eyes wide. It was like he couldn't look away. We went to bed that night, but sleep didn't come easy. I kept thinking about what Derek had said. A face in the trees. Big, round eyes. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just his imagination running wild. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was being watched. I didn't tell Sam. He was already snoring in the tent next to mine, and I didn't want to freak him out. I just closed my eyes, tried to push the feeling of unease to the back of my mind. Then, at 3 a.m., it happened. I woke up to Sam screaming, sharp, guttural, panicked. I rushed out of my tent, my heart racing. Sam was sitting up, his legs shaking. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. What the hell's going on, man? I shouted, stumbling toward him. Sam didn't respond at first. He just kept breathing heavily, his eyes wide. Then he looked down at his legs, and that's when I saw the blood. Claw marks. 5 long, deep scratches running down his shin, right through his pants. What the hell did this? I asked, my voice trembling. I don't know, Sam whispered, shaking. I woke up, and something grabbed my leg, pulled me, like it was trying to drag me into the trees. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. Derek, who had been dead asleep, was now wide awake, eyes darting around the campsite. He didn't seem surprised at all. In fact, he looked almost relieved. Do you hear it? Derek asked, his voice low. The whispers? It's calling me. I looked at him, confused. What the hell are you talking about? The trees, Derek said, his eyes distant. They whisper at night. They're calling me. I can hear them. Sam was shaking his head, pulling his legs up to his chest. No, we need to leave. Now. But Derek wouldn't listen. He didn't want to leave. He was fixated, like he had become part of this place, like something about it was pulling him in. He insisted he had to stay, that he needed to hear more. I didn't get it. We had to go. But Derek kept muttering about the trees, about the whispers. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I kept my eyes on Derek, watching him, afraid he might do something crazy. Around dawn, Sam insisted we pack up and leave. We argued, but in the end, we agreed. Derek was still acting strange, like he was in a trance, his eyes glazed over as he stared into the woods. We packed up our things, but Derek refused to move. He wouldn't leave. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't the same person anymore. That afternoon, we found a trail of blood, a narrow, dark line that led deeper into the trees. We followed it, hoping to find Derek, but the trail just seemed to lead to nowhere. It vanished after a few hundred yards. And then we found Derek's phone. It was cracked, the screen shattered, but it was still recording. We played the video. The last 30 seconds were just Derek's face, staring into the woods. His eyes were wide, unblinking, as if he were seeing something none of us could. He whispered into the camera, "I see you now. I understand." Then the camera dropped, and the video ended. We called the Rangers. They came out to search the area. They didn't find anything. No sign of Derek. They looked for 5 days, combing every inch of Raven's Hollow, but they never found him. The strangest part, the Rangers said the place didn't exist on any official park maps. It wasn't on any maps at all, and after they searched, they told us it never had. Raven's Hollow was a place that was never meant to be found. And Derek? He's still out there somewhere, watching, waiting, and every now and then, when the wind blows just right, I think I can hear him, whispering from the trees. Story 3. It was the fall of 2022 when I first set my eyes on Eagles Peak, a trail that wasn't well known, at least not in the way the touristy spots are. And that, in a way, was why I chose it. I'd been feeling suffocated, drowning in the humdrum of city life, surrounded by people who never seemed to stop talking. I needed space. I needed to breathe. So, I packed my bag and set off on a solo trek, hoping to find some clarity or at least a moment of peace. The first few miles were serene, almost too peaceful. The kind of silence that settles around you like a blanket, too heavy to ignore. The air smelled different there, sharper, colder. The trees stood tall and straight, and the trail seemed to stretch out endlessly, leading me deeper into the wild. I should have known that wasn't a good sign. The trail was tricky in places, twists and turns that weren't on the map, rocks that made my boots slip, and branches that seemed to reach out at me as though trying to pull me off track. But it wasn't until I reached the ridge that something really began to feel wrong. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, and the woods felt like they were pressing in on me. It wasn't just the fading light. It was the way everything suddenly went so quiet. The birds stopped chirping. Even the wind died. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. I pulled out my phone to check the map, but something was off. The GPS was glitching, flickering between random locations before finally freezing entirely. A strange static sound came through my earbuds. And it wasn't just the usual crackling of a weak signal. It sounded distorted, like a scream, but twisted, stretched thin, as if it were miles away but coming from inside my own head. I ripped the earbuds out and looked around. Nothing but trees. I started to feel that uncomfortable itch in the back of my mind, the kind you get when you know you're being watched. But there was no one here, just me and the darkening woods. I shrugged it off and decided to keep moving. That was when I heard it. A whisper. My own voice. A soft, desperate, "Help me." It was barely audible, but it cut through the silence like a knife. I froze, every muscle in my body locking up. My heart thudded so loudly in my chest that it nearly drowned out the sound of the wind, which had somehow started to pick up again. I looked around, trying to see if anyone was nearby, but the forest was still empty, the trees swaying in the breeze. "Help me." The voice came again. This time, it wasn't in my head. It was coming from the trees, just beyond my sight. But it was my voice, my exact tone, pleading, broken, desperate. But I hadn't said a word. Not out loud. I could feel my stomach twist into a knot. The hairs on my neck stood up. My instinct was to run, but something deep inside me told me to stay, to find out what was happening. I took a few shaky steps forward, and the voice came again. Help me. It was like a game, a cruel joke, something playing on my mind, pulling me deeper into the forest, leading me down a path I didn't recognize. Every time I moved, I heard it. That voice. The same words. Same desperate plea. And it wasn't just my voice anymore. It was distorted, stretching like it was being forced through a tunnel. By the time the sun had fully set, I was thoroughly lost. I knew the trail well enough to know I'd strayed far off course, but I couldn't see anything familiar. I tried to use my phone again, but there was no signal. It was just me, the dark, and the growing sense that I wasn't alone. I found a small rock outcropping near a stream, and I decided to set up camp there for the night. The thought of moving further into the woods felt worse than staying put. I unrolled my blanket and tried to sleep, but I couldn't stop hearing the voices. It started quietly at first, a whisper just outside my tent, too faint to make out the words. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was just the wind. But then the whispers grew louder, more urgent, a chorus of voices, all calling my name, crying, screaming, pleading. It was like they were circling me, and I could feel the presence of something wrong, just beyond the fabric of my tent. I wanted to scream, to run, but I stayed still, too afraid to move, too afraid to face whatever was out there. The voices came in waves, rising and falling, getting closer, then farther away, like a sickening game. And through it all, that one voice kept repeating, "Help me." By morning, I was delirious. I hadn't slept at all. The shadows still hung heavy in the air, and I was certain that the woods had changed overnight. The trees were darker, their limbs twisted into unnatural shapes. The silence was back, thick and suffocating. I forced myself to get up and keep moving, desperate for a way out. I climbed higher, hoping the elevation would give me some sort of perspective. Maybe I could find a way to call for help. But when I reached the ridge, I found something that made my stomach lurch. A small cave, barely large enough for me to crawl into. I was drawn to it, compelled to go inside, like the forest was whispering to me, beckoning me closer. Inside, I found something that will haunt me forever. On the walls, scratched into the stone, were dozens of figures. People, or at least what looked like people, silhouettes, all with their mouths wide open, screaming. I could almost hear them in my head, their cries echoing through the cave. The faces were blank, just shapes, but the way their mouths were open, it was like they were begging, pleading. And then I saw the figure at the top of the wall, a crude drawing of a person with no legs, arms stretched out like they were reaching for something. Above it, the word was carved into the stone, Echo. I stepped back, my breath quickening. That's when I heard it. My own voice. Help me. I turned to leave, but that's when I saw it. Me, standing in the entrance of the cave. Same clothes, same backpack, same terrified expression. But his face was wrong. His eyes were hollow, black, and his lips were sewn shut with thick, jagged stitches. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything inside me screamed to run, but my body refused to obey. I couldn't tear my eyes away from that thing. The last thing I remember was blacking out, the world going dark. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. I was lying in a bed, my body stiff and aching. A group of hikers had found me wandering along a fire road, muttering nonsense. I didn't remember how I'd gotten there. My gear was gone. Everything, including my phone, was just gone. I tried to explain, but they looked at me like I was crazy, like I'd lost my mind. They told me I'd been missing, that I just walked off the trail and hadn't been found until days later. But I know what happened, and the drawings, they're still there. They haunt me. Every night, I see them, hear the voices, and that one word, echo. I know the forest is still out there, waiting. And every time I close my eyes, I wonder, is it just the wind, or is something else out there, echoing my own voice, calling me back? Maybe one day I'll go back. Maybe I'll find the answers. But I'm not sure I want to, because deep down, I know some things are better left forgotten.